The hall was bright with music, flowers, and laughter. My sister Lisa stood in her wedding dress, glowing, while guests filled the tables with chatter. I came in quietly, wearing my soldier's uniform, proud of who I was. For a moment, I thought this day would be about her happiness and family coming together. Then my father's voice cut through the noise. He was standing near the front, glass in hand, smiling too wide. "Everyone, this is my son David," he said loudly, drawing eyes toward me. "But don't expect too much. He's just a lowly soldier." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. The laughter that followed stung even more. A few cousins chuckled. Some guests hid their smiles behind their hands. My mother's face went pale. She tried to pull on a sleeve. "Please, not now," she whispered. But my father shook her hand away. "He chose that uniform instead of a real career," he went on. "While his sister is marrying a man of business, David is still crawling around like a boy playing army." The hall grew louder with whispers. I stood frozen, my jaw tight, my fists curled at my sides. I could have spoken, I could have shouted, but something inside me told me to keep quiet. Not here, not today. This was Lisa's moment, and I would not ruin it by answering anger with anger. My eyes dropped to the floor, but the shame burned hot in my chest. I felt every stare pressing down on me, like I was smaller than the shoes I stood in. Lisa's smile faltered. She glanced at me from across the hall, her eyes full of guilt. My mother reached out to touch my shoulder, a silent apology for words she couldn't control. And me? I stood there, still as stone. I swallowed the pain, swallowed the anger, swallowed everything. If I let one word slip, the whole wedding could turn into a storm. So I stayed silent, even though my heart screamed inside me. And in that silence, the betrayal was louder than anything else in the room. Growing up, I was always the quiet one in the family. My sister Lisa was the bright star, the one who seemed to shine wherever she went. She was clever, graceful, and always knew how to impress our father. I never envied her, but I always felt the difference in how we were treated. When I was a boy, I used to bring home small prizes from school, certificates for good behavior, medals for sports. I would run to show them to my father, waiting for him to say he was proud. But he would barely look up, muttering something like, "That's fine. Keep working." Then Lisa would walk in with her report card full of A's, and he would beam with joy, lifting her up as if she had just conquered the world. Our mother tried to balance it. She would hug me, tell me she was proud. But a boy always longs for his father's voice, his father's respect. And that I rarely got. As I grew older, I found my own path. The military called to me. I wanted purpose, discipline, and a way to serve something bigger than myself. When I told my father I had enlisted, he laughed right in my face. "A soldier? You'll spend your life taking orders from men smarter than you. That's not a career, David. That's slavery." His words stung, but I did not turn back. The day I put on my uniform for the first time, I felt pride he would never understand. I carried it through training, through long nights, through missions that tested my strength and my courage. There were times I risked my life, but I never regretted it. Still, whenever I came home on leave, my father made sure to remind me how he felt. He would say things like, "If you had studied business like your cousin, you'd be a man of success by now." Or, "All you have are medals. What can medals buy?" Nothing. What he never knew, or never cared to see, were the sacrifices I made. There were nights I sent part of my small salary home so Lisa could continue her studies without worry. When my mother fell ill once, I skipped buying things for myself just to cover part of her medicine. I didn't announce it, I didn't ask for praise, but in my heart, I thought maybe they would notice one day. They never did. Lisa, to her credit, always loved me. She would write me letters while I was away, telling me how much she missed me, how proud she was that I wore the uniform. But even she couldn't break through the wall our father built between us. Now, at the wedding, I could see how the family stood. My father glowing with pride beside Lisa and her wealthy fiancé. My mother moving between them like a peacekeeper, afraid of any tension. And me, standing at the edges, like a shadow, invited but not celebrated. The closer the wedding came, the more I realized my place in their eyes. I was not the son who brought honor, not the child who made them proud. I was the soldier, strong enough to be useful, but never enough to be respected. Yet, deep inside, I held on to something my father could never take from me, the knowledge of what I had endured, the battles I had fought, the men I had saved. My worth was real, even if no one in that hall chose to see it. And so, when I put on my uniform that morning and walked into the wedding, I knew I was walking into a place where love and respect were uneven. Still, I came because family was family, and I believed that for Lisa's sake, I could endure anything, even humiliation. The ceremony was beautiful, simple, but full of joy. Lisa stood beside her fiancé, Daniel, and they looked like a perfect picture. The guests clapped as the vows were exchanged, and for a moment I let myself relax, thinking maybe the storm had passed. But storms don't stay quiet for long. At the reception, when everyone gathered for food and drinks, my father raised his voice again. He stood tall, his arm around Daniel's shoulder, pulling him close. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said proudly, "this young man is not just my daughter's husband. He is a real man with a future." The words rang out clearly, heavy with meaning. My chest tightened, because I knew what was coming next. My father turned slightly toward me, his eyes sharp, his smile cruel. "Unlike some people," he added, "Daniel chose the path of success, business, wealth. He will lead a family with dignity." A ripple of laughter and murmurs spread through the crowd. I felt dozens of eyes dart toward me, then quickly look away. Some guests smiled politely, pretending not to notice the insult. Others whispered behind their glasses, their voices like knives cutting into me. Lisa's face went pale. She tried to change the subject, clapping her hands lightly and thanking the guests for coming, but my father would not stop. He tapped his glass and went on. "My daughter has chosen well. She didn't settle for little things. She chose a man who can give her the life she deserves. That's what matters." I could feel my blood boiling, my fists clenching tight at my sides. Every muscle in me screamed to walk up to him, to tell him what respect really means. I thought of the medals hidden away in my drawer, medals that had cost sweat, pain, and near death. To him they meant nothing. To me, they were my honor. My mother's hand brushed against mine under the table. It was her silent way of asking me to stay calm. Her eyes begged me not to react. Not here, not today. I looked at Lisa. She was biting her lip, fighting back tears. This was her wedding, her day, and my father was turning it into a weapon. For her sake, I forced myself to sit still. Inside, though, the anger roared. Each word my father spoke felt like a slap across my face. A real man, he had said, as if being a soldier, risking my life, was nothing. As if I was a child who had never grown. I thought about leaving. My chair scraped slightly against the floor as I shifted, ready to stand. It would have been easy to walk out, disappear into the night, and let them all sit in their false pride. For a second, I even imagined it, the door closing behind me, the silence that would follow. But then I looked at Lisa again. Her eyes met mine, filled with pain and apology. She didn't deserve for her day to be remembered as the day her brother walked out. She deserved happiness, even if I had to carry my own shame to give it to her. So I stayed. I swallowed my anger, as bitter as it was. I sat in silence while my father laughed and boasted, while the whispers circled around me like vultures. My heart burned, but I kept it inside. For my sister, for family, even if it meant my father would never see me as more than a lowly soldier. After the speeches and the laughter, after the music grew louder and people filled the dance floor, I slipped out for air. My chest felt heavy, and the walls of the hall pressed in on me. I needed space, even if only for a moment. I stepped into the garden outside. The night was calm, the sky scattered with stars. I took a deep breath and tried to steady myself. My father's words echoed in my head again and again. Lowly soldier, not a real man. Disappointment. I thought I was alone, but then I heard footsteps behind me. My father. He came out with a glass in his hand, the smell of wine sharp in the air. His smile was gone. His eyes looked cold, hard. So, he said, standing a few feet away, you just sat there like a stone. No word, no fight. That's what I mean, David. You've got no fire in you. Just uniform and silence. I clenched my jaw. Why, Dad? Why do you need to shame me in front of everyone? Today is Lisa's wedding, not the day to attack me. He waved his hand like I was nothing. Attack you? I only said the truth. You chose a path with no future. You run around in mud, taking orders, while real men build businesses and fortunes. Look at Daniel. Look at what he's bringing into this family. That's what makes a father proud. Something inside me cracked. My voice rose before I could stop it. You think saving lives has no value? You think protecting people means nothing? Do you know what I've been through, what I've done? He sneered. Don't start your stories. Those medals you hide in your drawer? Trinkets. Shiny toys they hand out so soldiers feel important. But at the end of the day, what do they bring home? Empty pockets and broken bodies. My hands shook. My mind flew back to nights when I came home from missions, body bruised and heart heavy, hoping maybe this time he would see me. I remembered standing in the living room, holding out the medal I earned after saving my squad in a dangerous mission. I had nearly died, dragging another soldier through enemy fire. I came home with that medal, waiting for him to be proud. He barely looked at it. That's nice, he had said, without even turning his head from the newspaper. The memory burned as fresh as if it had happened yesterday. I looked at him now, standing in the garden, shaking my head. You never cared. You never saw me. Everything I did, every sacrifice, it was never enough for you. I gave money when Mom was sick. I helped Lisa when she needed school fees. I did it quietly because I thought family doesn't need applause. But you only respect money, titles, status. His face hardened. Yes, I respect those things, because that's what the world respects. Nobody will remember the soldier who followed orders, but they'll remember the man who built an empire. His words cut deep, but I refused to show weakness. Maybe the world forgets soldiers, but the people we save don't. The men who went home alive because of me, they remember. And I remember. That's enough. For a moment, silence fell between us. The music from the hall floated out faintly, mixed with the chirping of crickets. His eyes narrowed as if he wanted to say more, but instead, he just scoffed. You'll never understand. That's why you'll always be small. The door behind us creaked open. My mother stood there, her face pale, her eyes wet. She must have heard most of it. She walked toward us slowly, placing her hand on my arm. Please, she whispered. Not tonight. Don't let this tear us apart on Lisa's day. I looked at her, and my heart softened. She had always tried to keep peace, to hold us together. But even she couldn't stop the hurt this time. Then Lisa came out too, her wedding dress glowing under the garden lights. Her hands trembled as she held her bouquet. Dad, she said softly, why do you do this? Why can't you just let him be? He's my brother. He's done more for us than you ever admit. My father snapped back at her. Don't speak to me like that. You don't understand what a man needs to be. I want the best for you, Lisa. And your brother. He's nothing compared to Daniel. Lisa's eyes filled with tears.
She turned to me.
I'm sorry, David. I don't know how to stop him. In that moment, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. My own father against me, my mother torn in the middle, my sister blaming herself. Cousins and uncles peeked from the doorway, whispering, taking sides. Some looked at me with pity, others with judgment, as if I had caused the scene. I felt alone, completely alone. But inside that loneliness, something grew. A quiet strength. I realized I didn't need his approval anymore. I didn't need the room to clap for me, or whispers to turn in my favor. All I needed was the truth I carried inside me, the knowledge that my life had meaning, even if he never saw it. So I straightened my shoulders and looked at him, steady and calm. You can call me a disappointment, Dad. You can keep your pride in wealth and status. But I know who I am. I know what I've done. And one day, you'll see it too. His face darkened, but I didn't wait for his reply. I turned and walked back into the hall. The music swelled, the guests stared, and I walked past them all with my head high. The night grew heavier as I returned to the hall. I could feel the eyes of guests still on me, whispers following like shadows. My father went back inside too, as if nothing had happened, his glass refilled, his laughter loud. He stood at the center of the room, bragging about Daniel's business connections, boasting about his own position at work, soaking in the admiration of the crowd. The humiliation sat like fire in my chest, and just when I thought it couldn't get worse, my father raised his voice again. I've built a life of respect, he declared proudly. At my company, everyone knows my name. My boss himself trusts me with great responsibility. He puffed his chest, his words dripping with pride. That is real success. Not wearing a cheap uniform and calling it honor. Some guests chuckled, others looked away in discomfort. My mother lowered her head, Lisa bit her lip, and I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to walk out once and for all. Then, in that exact moment, the doors of the hall swung open. A tall man in a dark suit stepped inside, flanked by 2 assistants. The air in the room shifted instantly. People straightened in their seats, murmurs rose. My father's face lit up like a child's. He rushed forward, almost stumbling, to greet the man. "Sir," my father exclaimed, nearly bowing. "Everyone, this is my boss, Mr. Andrews. A man of true power and respect. I am honored he joined us tonight." The room applauded politely, all eyes on the important guest. My father grinned proudly, glancing around as if to say, "See? This is the company I keep. This is what success looks like." But then Mr. Andrews' eyes fell on me. His step slowed. His face changed from the polite mask of a businessman to something softer, something heavy with recognition. He walked past my father, straight toward me. The hall went quiet. "David," he said, his voice carrying through the silence. "David Carter?" I stood up slowly, unsure of what was happening. "Yes, sir," I answered. Without hesitation, Mr. Andrews reached out and shook my hand firmly, both of his hands wrapping around mine. His eyes shone with emotion. "This man," he said, turning to the crowd, his voice trembling with respect, "this soldier saved my life." The room gasped. Chairs creaked as people leaned forward. My father froze in place, his smile gone. Mr. Andrews went on, his voice strong. "Years ago, during an attack overseas, I was trapped under fire. I thought I would never see another sunrise. And then this man, this so-called lowly soldier, dragged me to safety while bullets flew around us. He put his own life on the line to save mine." His words echoed through the hall like thunder. Guests covered their mouths, shocked. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Lisa let out a soft sob. Mr. Andrews looked around the room, his expression stern. "And you call him lowly? You laugh at him? You should all be on your feet applauding him. Men like David are the reason people like me are alive today. He deserves honor, not shame. Respect, not ridicule." The hall went silent again, but this time the silence was heavy with guilt. Then, slowly, people began to clap. First one table, then another, until the whole room filled with the sound of applause. Some stood, clapping hard, their eyes on me with newfound respect. I stood there, not moving, my throat tight. I had faced battlefields, but I had never faced something like this, my worth laid bare before those who had doubted me most. I looked at my father. His face was pale, his pride shattered. He opened his mouth, but no words came. For once, he had nothing to say. Mr. Andrews turned back to him. "You should be proud, not ashamed. A son like this is a blessing." The power in the room shifted. No longer was I the shadow in the corner. I was standing tall, the truth revealed, my dignity restored in front of everyone. And my father, the man who had spent his life belittling me, now stood silent and small, exposed before his own family and friends. The clapping went on until it filled the hall, rolling like waves. I stood there, still in my uniform, feeling every sound press into me, not as shame this time, but as respect. My father lowered his head, his hand still clutching his glass. For the first time in my life, I saw him look small, his shoulders hunched, his eyes unable to meet mine. I could have let the moment crush him. I could have stood tall and left him to drown in his own pride. But then I looked at Lisa, standing in her white dress, her cheeks wet with tears. This was her day, and I would not let it be remembered as the day her father and brother tore each other apart. I raised my hand gently, and the clapping slowed until the hall was quiet again. My voice came out steady, though my chest was tight. "Thank you," I said, looking around the room. "But tonight is not about me. Tonight is about my sister, Lisa, and her husband, Daniel. This is their beginning, and it should be filled with joy, not arguments." I glanced toward my father. His face was pale, his eyes searching mine. I didn't speak to shame him, though I could have. Instead, I went on. Families aren't perfect. We fight, we misunderstand. Sometimes we hurt each other more than strangers ever could. But at the end of the day, we are still family. And family should mean love, respect, and support. My mother's tears spilled freely now, her hands pressed together, as if she were praying. Lisa let out a shaky laugh, nodding through her tears. Even Daniel, who had been quiet all evening, looked at me with new eyes, almost as if he finally understood the man standing in front of him. I smiled at my sister. "Lisa, you are my little sister, and nothing will ever change that. I may not always say it, but I am proud of you. I hope your marriage is filled with happiness, with strength, with the kind of respect every family deserves." The hall was still, but the silence was warm, not heavy. I could feel the respect in the air, a weight that lifted me higher instead of pressing me down. For the first time in years, I stood tall not because I had to, but because I knew I was seen. My father finally moved. He set his glass down with a trembling hand and stepped closer. His lips parted, but no words came out. He looked at me the way a man looks at something he never thought he'd lose, and never thought he'd have to beg to regain. Shame filled his face, but so did something softer. Regret. I didn't push him. I didn't need his words to know what he was feeling. The truth had already been spoken for both of us. The music slowly began again, and the guests returned to their seats, but their eyes still lingered on me with respect. Cousins who once whispered behind their hands now nodded at me. Aunts who never asked about my life smiled through tears. I felt different. Not because of their clapping, not even because of Mr. Andrews' powerful words. I felt different because I had stood my ground, carried my pain with dignity, and still chosen love over revenge. As I sat down beside my mother, she squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you, David," she whispered, her voice breaking. For the first time in a long time, I believed her. That night, I walked tall, not as the lowly soldier my father once named me, but as the man I truly was. The wedding ended with music and laughter, but underneath it all, the air felt changed. People no longer looked at me as the quiet shadow in the corner. They looked at me as if they finally saw me. When most of the guests had gone, I stepped outside into the cool night. The garden was quiet now, the lanterns still glowing softly. I thought I was alone until I heard slow footsteps behind me. It was my father. He stood there, no glass in his hand this time, no pride in his voice. For a long moment he said nothing, just looked at me with tired eyes. Finally he spoke, his voice low. "David, I was wrong." The words caught me off guard. My father, the man who never bent, never admitted fault, was standing there humbled. "I should have been proud of you," he said. "I should have seen what you've done for this family, for this country. Instead, I mocked you. I let my pride blind me." I studied him, the lines on his face deeper now, his shoulders no longer so tall. Part of me wanted to hold on to the anger, to remind him of every insult, every year of silence. But another part of me, the stronger part, knew I couldn't live with that weight forever. "I forgive you," I said quietly. His head lifted slightly, hope flickering in his eyes. "But understand me, Dad. I won't let you disrespect me again. Not in public, not in private. I know my worth now, and I won't let anyone take it away." He nodded slowly, his lips pressed together, unable to speak further. But I saw the truth in his eyes. He knew I meant every word. As I walked back toward the hall, I felt lighter, freer. Respect is not earned by money or titles. It is not found in business cards or in applause from strangers. True respect comes from sacrifice, from integrity, from standing tall even when the world tries to push you down. That night, I walked into the darkness, not as the boy desperate for his father's approval, but as a man who finally understood his own value. And for the first time, I felt truly at peace. Hey besties, thanks for staying till the end of this emotional story. Imagine being called a lowly soldier at your own sister's wedding, only for the truth to shine and respect to return. Painful but powerful, right? Sometimes the deepest humiliation turns into the greatest strength. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, share, drop a comment, and of course,